Hey guys, I've reluctantly held off on making a video to address the recent shooting in Sandy Hook, Connecticut at the elementary school. First of all, I want to start off by saying my condolences go out to the family members who lost loved ones in that horrible tragedy, and I'm so very sorry for your losses. I've remained silent for the most part on this subject simply because I wanted to show respect to those who have lost loved ones in this tragedy. Unfortunately, the anti-gun forces in this country have no such tact or couth. They immediately climbed on the backs of the dead in front of the first camera they could find and started pushing their political agendas forward. The anti-gun forces historically have almost looked forward to such events so they could immediately race to a camera and start passing bills as fast as they could to capitalize on such tragedies. And it's disgusting to me. And of course, they didn't let us down this time. The same usual suspects are at play once again, including Dianne Feinstein, who has reintroduced the assault weapons ban several times after its original expiration in 2004. And of course, immediately after this tragedy, she raced to the first camera to announce that she had a brand new one waiting, and that she wants to, of course, push that through right after the first of the year. So that's what I want to talk about in this video. Now, I'm not going to start doing political videos on the Military Arms channel. This is just a one-of-a-kind video that I felt, I really needed to do. I get a lot of questions about, where do I stand on semi-automatic rifles, or as they've been defined inaccurately as assault rifles. And I think most of you guys know where I stand, obviously. Look at the nature of my channel. So, but anyway, I felt compelled to make this video, and I'm going to do it now, simply because the anti-gun forces have left me no choice in terms of timing. Gun laws are really about controlling you and me, and it has absolutely nothing to do with public safety. As evidence of this, the original 1994 assault weapons ban went into effect and allowed existing semi-automatic rifles with various naughty features to remain in circulation. You could keep them. They were grandfathered. You could not only keep them, you could sell them, you could buy them. There were really no restrictions on them other than they couldn't be manufactured with certain features after the law went into effect. The law was in effect for 10 years. During that time period, we have clear statistics showing that the law did absolutely nothing to curb crime. The assault weapon, as defined by the 1994 bill, accounts for something around 3% of the crime actually committed in the United States. They're insignificant in the overall grand scheme of things. So if the anti-gunners were concerned with public safety, they would be banning or trying to ban things like .22 handguns or handguns that cost $200. And they've tried that in the past. They certainly did. But again, that boils back down to racism. If you're not in a certain socioeconomic class, then you're not worthy of owning a gun. If you can't afford to pay $1,000 for an H&K, you certainly aren't to be trusted with a $150 High Point. But they have to be careful. These people are very crafty in what they try to do. But back to my original point, the 1994 law did absolutely nothing to curb crime, and that wasn't its intent. Its intent was to rob you and I of our Second Amendment rights. It was a baby step towards the ultimate goal of complete banning and confiscation of all firearms in the United States. That's been the stated goal of people like Sarah Brady in the past, and even Dianne Feinstein. Not only that, but the Columbine shooting happened several years after the assault weapons ban was passed in 1994. It did nothing to stop a school shooting. And that's why we now find ourselves back in this hotly contested debate because of another tragedy where an absolutely insane man went on a shooting spree. Now let's talk about that event, and then we'll talk about the proposed assault weapons ban that Dianne Feinstein has put on the table once again. That shooting was the result of a sick individual. It had nothing to do with the firearms used. Not only that, the laws worked in this case. The shooter went to Dick's and attempted to buy a rifle. He didn't successfully buy a rifle legally because of the laws that were on the books. The laws stopped him. He was afraid of the background check, and he didn't want the 3-day waiting period. So he didn't buy a firearm. It stopped him. However, ill will was in this man's heart. He went to his mother's home and murdered her. Now, if I'm not mistaken, there are laws on the books already about murder. He violated that law. He murdered his mother and took her legally owned firearms and committed this tragedy. Now, Would another assault weapons ban, similar to the 1994 law, have stopped this? Absolutely not. You'd have to be a complete idiot to think that it would. It would have had no effect, just as it didn't during Columbine. This man was willing to murder his mother to obtain illegal access to firearms so he could go do this. But even if you take the firearms out of the equation, let's say that we magically make firearms go away tomorrow. Would that mean firearms-related violence would go away? Or not firearms-related violence, but violence, would it magically go away? Take a look at China. Right after the Sandy Hook shooting took place, a madman in China went into a school and stabbed over 20 children. As a matter of fact, China has some of the most strict gun control laws in the world. And since 2010, U.S. media has been reporting about the atrocities being committed by knifemen and axemen in China. In 2010, over 20 children in China were murdered by knife attacks in schools, with over 50 being wounded. In September, I believe, or September of this year, an axeman went into a school in China and murdered 3 children and wounded 13. Is the solution to ban axes? Ban sharp implements? Should we lock everybody in a round room so we can't hurt each other? No. There's nothing you can ban that will stop somebody that has murder in their heart. If somebody wants to kill somebody, they're going to kill somebody, regardless of the tool. Banning firearms has never worked, and it never will work, any more than prohibition stopped people from drinking. All it does is give rise to crime. If you want to see more murders in the United States with weapons, illegal weapons, ban firearms completely and watch what happens. Criminal elements will rise up. Making a firearm is not a hard thing to do. Firearms are made in prison, all right? Firearms will show up on the black market. The gangs will have them. The only people that won't have them will be the law-abiding citizens, and that's always the case. The only people that abide by laws are the law-abiding. The criminal will always do criminal acts. So, I am completely appalled, once again, with the anti-gun forces, with their efforts to climb on the backs of the dead in front of the first camera and immediately start pushing their political agenda forward. It has nothing to do, as I've demonstrated, with public safety. It doesn't, because if they really were concerned with public safety, they would ban things other than semi-automatic military rifles, which account for a minuscule number of shootings annually in the United States. They would ban things like concealable handguns, 22 caliber handguns, even 9mm and 380s or 25 ACPs kill more people every year than black rifles or semi-automatic rifles in the hands of criminals. So let's talk about this new law that Dianne Feinstein has proposed. Once again, her stated comments, and we haven't seen the law, but her stated comments are that she won't move to confiscate existing weapons, but they will ban the manufacture and sale of semi-automatic rifles and high-capacity magazines, anything over 10 rounds, going forward. The millions of firearms that are already out there in hands of Americans won't be touched. So it has nothing to do with public safety. That new law that she has proposed would do nothing to stop a future school shooting any more than the 1994 law did to stop the Columbine shooting. So here we have a bunch of knee-jerk reactions once again, and politicians looking to push forward their agenda of, in essence, stripping the Second Amendment from the Constitution. And they're doing so on the backs of the dead once again. I urge you guys to write your congressmen, write your senators, and let them know and remind them that if they pass another assault weapons law, just like they did in 1994, we will clean out the House of Representatives and we'll clean out the Senate with our votes. We will not tolerate them doing this. There are things that we can do to better help those that are mentally disturbed, but adding more laws to the books, we have thousands of them already, isn't going to change the outcome of what these lunatics are doing. We have to address the social problems that are causing these people to do these things. But then again, we live in a nation of 300 and some million people. And every once in a while, some lunatic out of that 300 million is going to do something unspeakable. No law is going to stop people from doing crazy things. It's always going to happen. It happens in countries with strict gun control laws, as I've told you already, and given you that evidence. So we need to urge our congressmen and our senators not to give serious consideration to Dianne Feinstein's feel-good law that will do absolutely nothing to stop crime, but will strip us of our Second Amendment rights. Thank you guys for watching, and again, my condolences to the families of those who lost loved ones at Sandy Hook.